Atlanta was their home, their city. For Alex Lamont and Brian Wiles, it was also the place where they found love. But on one fateful night, the city that had held so many of their dreams became the setting for a nightmare that no one could have anticipated. It was late on a warm autumn night in Atlanta, Georgia, when police responded to a report of a violent assault in a residential neighborhood. When they arrived, they found Alex Lamont and Brian Wiles, a newly married gay couple, lying battered on the ground. Alex was alive but unconscious, and Brian was barely clinging to life. Both men were rushed to the hospital, but Brian would later succumb to his injuries. This was more than a random act of violence. It was a calculated attack, leaving the LGBTQ+ community shaken and searching for answers. Normally, Atlanta offers a high degree of freedom and acceptance for LGBTQ individuals relative to other southern cities. While LGBTQ individuals generally find Atlanta to be welcoming and vibrant, full legal protections and social acceptance are not guaranteed everywhere, especially in rural areas of the state. As they sat together, talking about their dreams, Brian smiled and said, "One day, we'll have a little place of our own, a yard, maybe a couple of dogs. Maybe even a kid," Alex replied, squeezing his hand. "We can give them the life we never had." They shared a quiet moment, both silently grateful for the life they were building together. Alex and Brian were young professionals who met in Atlanta's vibrant LGBTQ+ community. Alex was known for his wit and sharp sense of humor, while Brian was easygoing and known to be the steady rock in their relationship. After a year of dating, the couple made the decision to marry, celebrating their commitment to one another in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. LGBTQ+ marriages are often met with a mix of acceptance and, at times, opposition. In supportive communities, friends and family celebrate these unions, forming strong networks of acceptance. But in areas with conservative beliefs, couples may still face resistance or negative reactions. Families respond to LGBTQ+ relationships in various ways. Some embrace their loved ones and celebrate their marriages openly, while others are hesitant, often due to limited exposure. Unfortunately, some families react negatively because of cultural or religious beliefs, causing strain or even loss of contact. Brian and Alex were in love, believing their future together was limitless. As they shared dreams of buying a home, traveling abroad, and maybe one day adopting children, they felt an overwhelming sense of purpose in their commitment. Living openly and proudly was a part of who they were. Yet, despite their confidence, they couldn't ignore that even in Atlanta, a city of acceptance, their love sometimes met with lingering prejudice, a reminder of the risks they still faced. Brian and Alex were not prepared for the shock that happened next. In communities where LGBTQ+ acceptance is limited, or where hate crimes are a risk, LGBTQ+ couples often need to consider their safety. They may face harassment, violence, or discrimination, and taking precautions becomes necessary to avoid potential threats. On that autumn evening, Alex and Brian had decided to go out for a night on the town, celebrating both their marriage and the life they were building together. After dinner, they headed to a bar in Midtown, enjoying the warmth and energy of the city. As Alex and Brian walked through the streets of Midtown Atlanta, the city pulsed around them, alive and vibrant beneath a soft autumn sky. The air was warm but carried a crisp edge, tinged with the faint scent of pine and fallen leaves. Neon lights from nearby bars and restaurants cast colorful reflections onto the pavement, shimmering in puddles left from an earlier rain. Laughter and music spilled out from open doorways, mingling with the occasional distant rumble of passing cars. Above, the high-rise buildings gleamed with lit windows, their towering presence both comforting and isolating. Street lamps lined the sidewalks, casting pools of golden light, and the buzz of conversation filled the air as people drifted in and out of bustling bars. There was an energy in the air, a lively warmth that wrapped around the evening, making everything feel a little lighter, a little freer. Atlanta was theirs tonight, a city of acceptance and celebration, or so they thought. But as they moved further away from the crowds, shadows grew deeper, stretching long and silent under the streetlights. The noise of the city faded, leaving only the soft echo of their footsteps. It was here, in this quiet pocket of night, that they sensed something shift, a chill creeping into the warmth, an unease that wasn't there moments before. They noticed they were being followed by a group of men. "Do you feel like they're following us?" Brian whispered, glancing over his shoulder. Alex laughed nervously. "Let's just keep walking. It's probably nothing." But inside, his stomach churned. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. What began as a lingering glance turned into menacing comments and then quickly escalated into something far more dangerous. The men began hurling slurs at Alex and Brian, mocking them and taunting their relationship. As the couple tried to defuse the situation and continue on their way, the men surrounded them, closing in from all sides. "Just leave us alone," Brian shouted, stepping protectively in front of Alex. One of the men sneered, "Think you can walk around here holding hands?" As punches began to land, Alex's thoughts blurred with fear. This can't be happening. We just wanted one night together. What happened next was brutal. Witnesses reported seeing the group unleash a flurry of punches and kicks. Alex and Brian tried to defend themselves, but they were outnumbered. The assault continued until the sound of approaching sirens scattered the attackers, leaving Alex and Brian lying on the pavement. As Alex lay in his hospital bed, trying to process the events, police had already begun their investigation. They classified the attack as a hate crime based on the slurs hurled by the attackers, a decision that brought both heartbreak and determination to the community. This wasn't just about Alex and Brian. It was a message that reverberated through Atlanta's LGBTQ+ community. Investigators pored over security footage from the area and conducted interviews with witnesses, hoping to identify the attackers. Meanwhile, Alex regained consciousness in the hospital, only to learn that his husband, Brian, had died from his injuries. When the doctor told him Brian was gone, Alex's mind went blank. "No, you're wrong," he whispered, barely audible. We were supposed to have a life together." He lay back, staring at the ceiling, feeling as if a piece of him had been torn away. "Brian, I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect you." Heartbroken and grieving, Alex cooperated with authorities, recounting the terrifying details of the night. As the case gained media attention, police were able to identify two suspects from the surveillance footage, both with prior arrests for violent behavior. The suspects were charged with murder and assault with a hate crime enhancement, a measure that carries a harsher penalty in Georgia. It's clear that these men were motivated by hatred toward Alex and Brian's relationship. Sitting in the courtroom, Alex clenched his fists, trying to hold himself together. "Brian, I'm doing this for you. They need to pay for what they did." When he took the stand, he looked the defendants in the eyes. "You took everything from me," he said, his voice steady despite the pain. "But you won't take away my right to see justice served." After weeks of grueling testimony, the court finally delivered its verdict. Both attackers were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. As the verdict was read, Alex felt a bittersweet sense of relief. It was justice, but it wouldn't bring Brian back. Outside the courtroom, he whispered, "I'll keep going, Brian. I'll keep our dreams alive, somehow." He looked up at the sky, hoping Brian could somehow hear him. Alex's testimony and the community's support were instrumental in the conviction, providing a sense of closure to the horrific ordeal. As Alex stepped out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon light, a wave of relief mixed with sorrow washed over him. The verdict brought justice, but it didn't bring Brian back. He stood quietly, letting the warmth of the sun touch his face, eyes closed as memories of Brian filled his mind. The way he'd laugh with that gentle, easy smile, his voice reassuring, his presence steady. He thought about the life they'd planned, the dreams they'd woven together in whispered conversations late at night. A home, a family, a future where they'd live openly and joyfully, no longer looking over their shoulders. The loss of those dreams felt like an ache that wouldn't fade, but Alex knew that, somehow, he had to move forward. Not just for himself, but for Brian. "I'll keep going for us both," he thought, his hand resting over his heart. "I'll live the life we dreamed of. I'll carry you with me in everything I do." Alex found the strength to keep moving forward, one step at a time.